I'm Sarah, 32 years old, a freelance graphic designer who loves peace and order in life. The small house in the suburbs where I live is the fruit of many years of hard work, a place I retreat to after stressful hours with projects. Everything would be perfect if it weren't for the appearance of Mark, the new neighbor who moved into the house across the street about 6 months ago. Mark, around 25 or 26, is a tall guy with the bad boy good looks that teenage girls often swoon over. But hidden beneath that appearance is an annoying arrogance and disregard for rules. He always seems to believe that rules only exist to apply to others, while he himself is exempt. And my biggest problem with Mark is his habit of parking haphazardly. My garage entrance is quite narrow, and Mark, with his old but always polished silver sedan, seemed to have a special penchant for parking right in front of my driveway, completely blocking the way. Not once, not twice, but extremely often. I had tried everything, from gentle reminders, polite notes tucked under the windshield wiper, to direct, frank conversations like, "Hey man, seriously, don't park here anymore." Mark's excuse was always, "Oh, I'm just parking for a bit." But his a bit usually lasted from 3 to 5 hours, sometimes the entire evening. There were days I came home late from work, exhausted, just wanting to quickly drive into the garage to rest, only to be frustrated having to find temporary parking on the street because Mark's car was parked squarely in front of my entrance. Once, I needed to go out urgently for a family matter, but was completely blocked by his thoughtlessness. The frustration gradually built up, like a ticking time bomb. I had tried to restrain myself, tried to be understanding, thinking that perhaps he was young and unaware of how his actions affected others. But a person's patience has its limits, and my limit with Mark was about to be reached. Last week, after a long day working on a rush project, I drove home around 7 in the evening. And, unsurprisingly, Mark's silver sedan was once again parked right in front of my driveway. This time, not only was it blocking the way, but he had also parked in an extremely arrogant manner, as if it were his private parking spot. Through Mark's living room window, I saw the lights were on. He was home. I even glimpsed Mark getting ready, spraying cologne, and styling his hair. It was clear he was preparing to go out, perhaps on a date. An idea flashed in my mind. A half smile flickered across my lips. Tonight was the night. The night my patience officially ran out and Mark would learn a lesson he'd never forget. I didn't go into my house right away. I quietly drove around the block, found a parking spot out of sight a few houses down. Then I walked back, phone in hand. This time there would be no warning, no note. I had given him too many chances. I did what I should have done weeks, even months ago. Called a tow truck company. I provided the address, described the offending vehicle, and emphasized that it was completely blocking the entrance to a private residence. The dispatcher confirmed the information and said a tow truck would arrive within 30 to 40 minutes. I thanked them and hung up, a sense of relief mixed with a little glee creeping into my heart. I didn't go back to my car immediately. Instead, I went into my house, made a cup of chamomile tea, and sat down in the armchair by the living room window, where I could clearly observe any movement outside. I wanted to witness the whole thing. As expected, about 35 minutes later, the specialized tow truck with flashing yellow lights appeared at the end of the street. Two uniformed employees quickly got out of the truck and identified Mark's silver sedan as their target. They worked very professionally and quickly. Within minutes, Mark's car was hooked up to the tow truck's rig, its front wheels lifted off the ground. And then, the tow truck slowly rolled away, taking my annoying obstacle straight to the impound lot. Not a loud noise, not a sign of resistance. Only the silence of the night and the yellow lights of the tow truck disappearing down the street. About 45 minutes after Mark's car was towed, as I was leisurely sitting on my porch, sipping a cold beer and enjoying the rare quiet. An interesting scene began to unfold. A young woman, dressed rather glamorously, clearly preparing for a date, walked quickly down the sidewalk towards Mark's house. She looked a bit flustered, glancing around as if searching for something. The girl stopped in front of Mark's house and knocked on the door. A few seconds later, Mark opened the door, his face beaming. But that smile immediately froze when he looked out at the street where his car was usually parked. It was gone. Panic was evident on Mark's face. He started looking around frantically, as if someone had stolen something incredibly valuable from him. The girl standing next to him also looked bewildered, not understanding what was happening. At that moment, I calmly spoke up from my porch, trying to sound as normal as possible. If you're looking for your car, it's been towed. You parked blocking my driveway again. Mark whipped his head around to look at me, his expression initially surprised, then turning to anger. He was about to argue, perhaps intending to spew his usual rude remarks, but the girl with him was a step ahead. She turned to Mark, her voice full of astonishment and disappointment. "Wait, you parked blocking her driveway?" Mark stammered, trying to explain, probably planning to use his old excuses like just for a bit, or there was nowhere else. But the girl didn't give him a chance. She just looked at Mark with contempt, shook her head, and said a short but scathing sentence. "Wow, you're truly pathetic," then turned and walked straight away, never looking back. Humiliation was written all over Mark's face. He stood stunned and alone in front of his house, watching the girl's figure disappear into the night, then turned to look at me with a mixture of anger and helplessness. But he didn't say another word. Perhaps the embarrassment in front of the girl was enough for him to realize he was wrong. Since that fateful night, I have never seen Mark park blocking my driveway again. He seems to have learned a lesson he'll never forget. Every time he drives home, he carefully finds a legal parking spot, even if he sometimes has to walk quite a distance. Another interesting thing is, I haven't seen Mark bring any girls home since that evening. It seems the confidence of the ladies' man took a pretty big hit after being humiliated right before his date. From someone who was always cocky, thinking he was the center of the universe, Mark became quieter, less attention-seeking. Occasionally, when we accidentally met on the street, Mark would usually avoid my gaze, or just nod a perfunctory "hello" before quickly disappearing. No more teasing remarks or condescending attitude like before. My life in this neighborhood has truly returned to being peaceful. The garage entrance is always clear. I no longer have to get frustrated every time I come home from work or need to go out. A small action, a timely decision, resolved a persistent problem and brought comfort not only to me, but perhaps also a necessary lesson for Mark. Sometimes, to deal with stubborn and selfish people, gentle words or forbearance have no effect. There need to be actions strong enough, surprising enough, for them to realize the consequences of their thoughtlessness. I have no regrets about calling the tow truck. It was the right decision. A legitimate act of self-defense to protect my living space and my own comfort. And more importantly, it taught Mark a lesson about respecting others, a lesson he will probably never forget. Peace and order have returned to our little street, and I can once again fully enjoy the living space I cherish.